Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. So on this issue as a social topic, right, there's a lot of LGBT people who want this to be said. So it's not, me against the LGBT community on this particular issue, right? It's, me and the LGBT people who want this to be said, and everyone else who wants this to be said, and people want to hear the truth, and people who feel that people have a right to understand why they're here, that they have a right to hear the top martial arts ever possible, that the news is supposed to be covering this. I'm supposed to be famous. People are supposed to be hearing what I'm saying. Okay? I mean, some people are so busy being a racial supremacist or so busy being greedy that they're cheating people, including themselves and their own family members, out of the most important truths in history, out of hearing what I have to say in its authentic form, what have you. And I'm sure we can all agree when we look at the screen that what other people are describing when it comes to Christ is simply wrong. Okay? There's some people who are describing something that is a bit closer to me than the people who talk about Christ in a way that is kind of fairy-like, right? And one of the terms that was used for gay people, right, is fairy, and also the Q word, right, meaning odd, right? The word is quote-unquote queer. No offense to anybody. And so when you think about God perfecting people, there's a lot of whites and Jews who don't want to admit that the ideal man of all time is black, right? Part black, is black and looks black. And to me, I'm not a racial supremacist. This to me is like as obvious as, Michael Jordan is one of the best basketball players, if not the best basketball player of all time. Okay, Martin Luther King, his holiday is the most like serious American holiday. I mean, it's as obvious as these sort of things, right? I'm not a racial supremacist. It just is what it is, right? The black people historically are the best, at hand-to-hand combat when it comes to the highest spectrum, on average, and at the highest spectrum of hand-to-hand combat. And it's like, okay, this is not that big of a deal. So there's a lot of, black people who aren't attractive, who are attractive, what have you. And I happen to be the most handsome person, when I was younger, the most handsome person that ever lived, right? Hand of God, right? The hand of God, the hand so me, right? So in the hand of God, versus, these people who are clowns. They see God as their own, right? It has the word own and the word clown. And of course, a lot of them worship various pagan deities, like the pagan deity El, who's a play on words for El, like mentally ill. No offense, this is just the truth of the matter. So when you see all these religions everywhere where they describe God like a fairy, okay, and they describe Christ as like a fairy, and it's crazy, right? They say stupid stuff like, oh, love your neighbor, and they're in some kind of fairy spirit, right? Gays and straights alike. They're like acting like Power Rangers, Care Bears, Smurfs. They're acting like some kind of sissy punks. When Exodus 15:3 says the Lord is a warrior. And even without the Bible, you know that the ideal man is the top martial arts ever possible, unless you're a complete idiot. That's why Jeremiah was going on and on about the Israelites' shameless prostitution. Okay, like in Jeremiah 13 verse 27, for example. Your adulteries and lustful neighings, your shameless prostitution. I have seen your detestable acts on the hills and in the fields. Woe to you, Jerusalem. How long will you be unclean? So imagine God watching this right now. Whose side do you think he's on? The top martial arts ever saying, hey, God is a serious heterosexual God, right? He wants heterosexuality. Okay? And anybody who wants to do the right thing, if they're straight, they gotta stop being a player, they gotta stop being immoral, they gotta come into the divine order. Okay, if they're gay, they're supposed to stop being gay. That's a choice they have. They can either be gay and accept not going to heaven, okay, or they gotta not only be straight, but they gotta come into the divine order. Now, if you can't help but being gay, and if you try with all your heart, you still got to try with all your heart to be right with God and come into the divine order. But the Spirit is not going to be conveyed in an LGBT form. It couldn't be done. Or some kind of sexual orientation neutral form. And it's very interesting that some people think that this is like a huge a deal or something. Why would it be a huge deal? Okay? We all know what homosexuality entails, what LGBT activities entail, and you know the difference between being pure and holy, okay, and even a straight guy doing, getting down and dirty, right, which is not pure and clean and holy, okay, and that filth seeks into your soul, it seeps into your spirit and your life, okay, and I know a lot of you don't want to hear this, but you have a right to have the option to choose your path, and you're cheating each other out of that right, your right to make that decision to either serve God while there's still time, or to just give in to your, carnal desires, your sensual desires. How many gays are Freemasons and they've read Pike, Morals and Dogma, where it talks about the lower self, the carnal desires, and the sensual desires. So you're not persecuting Freemasons when they say things in a way that makes it clear. You're not persecuting these white supremacists and these Jewish supremacists who've broken away into groups, and so they can say everyone else is acting like an LGBT person. They can pretend they're superior, but you're persecuting me. That is that is petty. Okay? Now, as we look at the comparison on the screen, and we look at Exodus 15:3, says the Lord is a warrior. Do you think he's rainbow bright? You think it's a fairy spirit? Do you think what the hell, right? So other people, when they're talking about Christ, and this is like the majority of the country, they're talking crazy. Because I'm here, and they're not obeying God through me. And we see it time and time again. They catch wind of it. They see me on the streets. They see the bumper sticker. They hear me talking about it, or they come across my videos or my Facebook back in the day, and they simply don't rally to me. They don't know what to do. They just keep going on their fairy journey, so they're talking crazy. When you compare the ideas that are being explained here is the soul brother of soul brothers, right? Black people are called soul brothers. No other race is called soul brothers. Every race was like, hey, that's what it is. That's why they didn't complain. But here you have a white Jesus who looks like a homosexual when you see in Leviticus and so on, and Romans where it says homosexuality is forbidden, and Revelation, right, where there's no correction of that argument. And in Revelation, it continues to say outside the gates are the sexually immoral, which also refers to the LGBT community. No offense to them. Again, as I'm being fumed right now, keep in mind that there's LGBT people who agree that it's fair to say this. How can you put sex over an exploration of what's right and wrong? It's just your mere sexual orientation. It's your refusal to be serious. You want to be gay and giddy. And you think that's more important than the most righteous person that ever lived is right to proclaim the truth, to explore this argument, to put this argument out there when you have no viable counter-argument? If I'm so wrong, why won't you present your counter-argument in the comments? And go point by point with me and thoroughly explore each point, because you won't do that because you know you're wrong and I'm right. So you're persecuting me for being right and for trying to help you and for trying to do the most righteous things that anyone's ever done in human history and doing them well, through sabotage. Why do you care more about being gay than human life, than not sabotaging somebody, than people who are starving to death? How many of you have been to gay parades and have never rallied to end world hunger or to house the homeless? How come you care so much about that, but you don't care about right and wrong? And how many of you argue that you think that moral absolutes magically don't exist? Which is akin to arguing that people should magically do what they want, which is, no matter if it's right or wrong, which is stupid. Now, I'm going to end this here because they're making it harder for me to talk, but everyone listening to this must have no doubt in their mind that my argument for me being Jesus is sound, and other people's arguments, if they're not arguing that I'm Christ, are crazy as it gets. You think some fairy-like person is going to come back on a cloud and save you from these oppressors who work around the clock to make your life miserable. And you've committed to that course. You've either convinced yourself that the lie is true knowing it's a lie, or you're trying to, or you actually believe that, or you go through the motions of believing that, but it leads you on the same path of stupidity of playing dumb and being dumb. Thank you.